Good evening, Instructor Ben from Wushu Association. And tonight's video, we're going to talk about how to hold the Chinese Jian properly. Now, I'm sure there'll be lots of variations. China's a big place, lots of different martial arts. The important thing is ask your instructor how they prefer you to do it, and importantly, why they do it that way. So tonight I'm going to show you why we do it the way we do it. Okay, and the advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so to us Chinese swordsmanship, there's your rudimentary thrusts, right, and also the sort of quick cut side techniques, and there's also your slashing cuts, right, and also there's also the reverse cuts. Okay, right, such as these. Now, so as you can see, the range of motion for the sword is actually quite wide, right? So, for example, if I'm doing defensive sort of techniques, okay, then I need to have the sword at a sort of braced angle, right, to absorb the impact. At the same time, if I'm doing a thrust, then I need to have the sword almost in line to the arm. Now, how we achieve that, it's the technique we use to hold the sword. So, basically, if you look at your hand, right, now the two main lines of the hand is the one that goes this way, right, that's just behind your four knuckles, and also the other line that goes from about the base of your index finger to your wrist. So your average, right, your basic sword hold, right, let's call it the angled position, right, is this way. Okay, now we hold it just below the guard, right, so that the guard can sort of brace the hand and give us, you know, a bit more sort of leverage and control over the sword. If we hold the sword a bit too low here, for example, right, then there's not as much, there's a lot more sort of wiggle room, right, and if we don't sort of have as much, you know, leverage and control over the sword, okay, so we hold it sort of just under the base of the guard. Now, when we do the pointed position, okay, then the sword sits on the line that goes from the index finger to the wrist, okay, because if we try and just try and point the sword without shifting the handle, without the pivot, then this is about as forward as we can get, right? So what we need to do is let it pivot on that sort of index finger and thumb sort of ring and pivot this way, okay? So we can have the sword lined up with our arm. I'll use some close-ups of the lines on the hands that I'm talking about, right? So you've got this line that goes this way on the hand, right? And you've got this line that goes this way on the hand. So basically, when it's the vertical position, right, hand goes around like that, see, just under the guard, right, so you got a nice amount of control and leverage, right, and then when you point forward, okay, see, your fingers wrap right around the sword, right, the index finger can sort of relax a little bit, just try and sort of help steer the give more leverage on the guard, okay, but, right, not over the guard, no, right, you can sort of point out, especially if you've got the forward swept guard. This sword's got a backward swept guard, okay, you got a forward swept guard, right, the index finger can comfortably go on this side of the guard, right, because traditional swords will have a much larger guard than the performance swords. Okay, so it goes this way, right, and this way. Okay, so I'm just going to show you why when we thrust we have to use the straight arm grip, okay, and we don't sort of use just a normal sort of, you know, angle grip when we try and do the thrust. So if I get Instructor Mitch to hold on to the sword, just to act as a bit of resistance. So if I just use a sort of normal grip like this and just try and stab like this, right? I don't have a lot of control over the angle, correct angle, right? And there's subsequently not a lot of force. So if he's wearing heavy, like in northern China, when they have a lot of heavy jackets, thick, heavy clothing that's got silk in it, or armor or something like that, that's not going to do the job, right? Same as this way, right? And that's not going to work. So what we need to do to do thrust properly, we need to change the grip so that the sword is in line with the arm. So then this way, the sword, right, it's lined up with our whole body. Okay, so in case there's any doubt that this is a sufficient grip to hold onto the sword to stop it flying out of my hand, so I was getting Instructor Mitch to give it a few test whacks, right? So as you can see, right, as long as all my fingers wrap around the handle, right, and then basically the thumb sort of comes over the top, right, it's a very nice firm grip, right? And even if it's sort of a slidey sort of grip. So the easiest way to sort of practice these movements, right, you want to do single person drills, okay, one forward, is you start with the wrist from here, just go forward, back, that way. Right, now you want to be aware that you don't want to do it with the sword coming straight back at you like this, but when you sort of chamber the sword, it goes sort of to the shoulder side, right? And when you sort of got a hang of this, that's when you involve the whole arm and shoulder. Okay. And then you start to learn to move the whole body. Okay. So this is like a dian or dab, sort of a quick cut. Right, and there's also thrust on the hip, that way. Right, so when it comes back here, see, you're in that sort of vertical position, and as you sort of push the sword out, it sort of goes to that pointed position, okay? Okay. Also another exercise is to do the flat circles, okay? Other side would go this way. So what happens is when the sword is here, as it comes back, right, it goes to that sort of ankle position, right, to the side, and it comes to the hip, goes to that straight position, and then push forward, right? Other side. It comes back, see, that sort of chamber position. When your hand comes back, make sure that you don't fall into this sort of trap where you don't have a good hold of your sword, okay? Because that'll give you the same problem where there's no leverage, okay? Make sure when you come back, right, you have a solid grip on the sword, okay? And also, I'll show you some two people exercises to practice this sort of hand movement. Now, this distance. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thrust, right, towards his midsection. Okay, so he's going to deflect out. So he's in an angle position, and he is going to then turn and then thrust back in a straight arm position. Okay, so from there, I then, right, use the angle position, right, to parry, and then now I turn back to the center, and then I thrust. Okay, then he thrusts, I thrust, he thrusts, I thrust. Outside, yep, that's it. Okay.